I didn't know broadcasting was a real job. I didn't know that this was a thing you could do.
Skinny for the win!
I don't know if I could do this job if I didn't let myself get excited about it. I get to let loose.
DeRozan to tie it!
This is Amin.
DeRozan does it again!
And you're watching Voices.
And we're going to overtime!
My dad came to the United States in the late 1970s, and he was a semi-pro cricket player in Pakistan. So after he got done with the brutal winter in Chicago,
News Talk 720, WGN.
he turned on WGN and saw a white jersey-clad baseball team that had players like Ivan DeJesus and Rick Russell and Bruce Sutter, and was not particularly good at baseball at the time, but gave him a sense of familiarity with the new country that he had just immigrated to. So when I was born a few years later in 1986, naturally that fandom got passed down to me. Pretty much any afternoon was spent in the basement of our house. He on the couch, me on the floor, but sitting in the basement with him, watching bad teams play and still recognizing that you could be connected to them and care about them despite the result. That was the first time I realized, oh, this is a thing. Sports are a thing that matter. And when you find out that something matters, you have a tendency to protect it. And I feel like I've been protecting it in some form or fashion for 30 years. Hard not to associate baseball and Chicago with Harry Carey and WGN, and it was always a shift in mood when you heard his voice telling you that it was time for Chicago Cubs baseball.
Hello again, everybody, with Steve Stone, Harry Carey. We're back at Wrigley Field.
So those summers, when you hear that voice, that meant, well, that was quality time you're about to spend, and you're about to put aside anything else that was bothering you, and you get to sit down and see if the team that you care about was going to bother you further or make your day a little bit easier for whatever reason. And then listening to Jim Durham and Neil Funk on the radio in the wintertime, watching Tom Dorr and Wayne Larrabee and Johnny Redker and Norm Van Leer during the winters, and seeing what they had to say about the greatest basketball player in the history of the world at that point, the most influential and important cultural figure, at least in sports in the city of Chicago, talking about why he was so great and what made him so great.
How you feeling?
This is great. I mean, this is kind of what we all dreamed about, right? Doing big-time events, big-time sports, covering big-time teams in your hometown. It doesn't really get much better than that, so it's awesome.
I didn't know broadcasting was a real job. I didn't know that this was a thing you could do. I was 8 years old and I was standing in front of my music class talking about what had happened in Chicago sports that day. I guess that was the first time that maybe it got ingrained that you could sit or stand in front of people and actually talk about sports and they would care or listen. But I fell backwards into it, and I went to the college radio station at Valparaiso University, and I saw the professor who was the advisor there, Paul Lauren, who's still a good friend of mine to this day, and he said, here's where you go to talk about sports. And I never left the radio station. I would only leave to go call games, it felt like. And when you realize that you have a skill set that may not be polished, but you want to invest time in it because you believe it might be something, you have a tendency to have some tunnel vision about it. So for the next 4 years, all I cared about was trying to be better at it. And I was pretty good for a college kid. And then you go out into the real world and you realize it's not exactly what you picture right out of the gate. And that's the point. It's supposed to weed people out because it's supposed to be something that's competitive. People want to talk about these things. They love these things. They care about these things. So of course they want to talk about them as often as they possibly can. And that's why it's competitive. That's why a lot of people want to do this. And that's why the business has a tendency to push you out if you don't really want to commit to it. When the opportunities started to come, I just didn't want to screw them up. And that's, I think, how you end up still doing this after 15 years. The best thing about getting the local job, and especially for me, getting to do the job for a team in a town that I grew up in, I get to let loose. When you serve a home audience, in particular one that you already have a fondness for and are frankly a part of, then there's something special about being able to let loose. And I think that's been the thing that I've had the most joy about I don't know if I could do this job if I didn't let myself get excited about it. It's hard for me to contain sometimes.
Sebastian.
Happy
Birthday, dear Papa. Happy birthday.
My dad had a very distinct life. He had 80 years on this earth, 40 years in Pakistan, 40 years in the United States. And the connectivity of that started to blur a little bit for him. I was fortunate enough to be able to make a phone call to him when I first got my big television job the first time at ESPN, and I was 24. And he was the first person I called, and he was the happiest person of anybody that I told, just because I think his vested interest in all this was a little bit deeper than everybody else's. I think he moved everybody here, moved himself here first, waited 7 years before sending for everybody else. I think he did those things because he thought it would be better for everybody. And I think he really wanted things for me to be better than they were for him. I hope that any success that I can accumulate in any form or fashion has some kind of positive, net positive on how he feels about his time here, wherever he might be right now.